All right, so the Houston Texans get a guy who I'm a big fan of. Again, they've seemingly been going a little bit off the traditional board, but we're going to see a lot of that here in day two of teams not being afraid to select other guys. John Metchie is one of the guys who I was a big fan of. I had him as a top 10 wide receiver on my list. I think it was around 7 or so. He's really good. One thing that you're going to notice about him is just, we'll get into it with the film, but just how good of a job he does with this route running, and he's so shifty, he's so quick. That's kind of why I like him so much. So let's get into the film, what I like about him, and then we will, I'll talk more about kind of the decision itself to go there at the end of this video. Let's start off with a play like this. It's a small play, but it can really kind of go to show the little details he has in his route running that allows him to get open, and I believe will work at the NFL level. So the way this play works, it's a cover 2 zone, and you see his route on this play. It's going to be a curl route. So there's a corner covering him. Basically, the way to view this is it's essentially going to be a one-on-one matchup. Although the corner knows that if Metchie is going to be running a go route, this now means that a safety could get over and make a play. So the corner at least has that little bit of help. So right when this play begins, notice how this corner starts to bail back. You see how his back is turned towards the bottom of the screen. So that's very important. Leverage at the wide receiver position is always going to be important, of understanding where you want to go, and Metchie does a great job of that. Look at how he is going to take a couple of steps to that side of the field, so now the corner who's covering him is in a bit of a tough spot. He can't really see Metchie right now because Metchie, is currently behind him. This isn't a bad play by the corner necessarily. I mean, maybe you could argue, hey, if you're going to have your hips turned towards the middle of the field, you have to make sure you are closer towards the sideline than Metchie is. But again, that's difficult, and Metchie did a good job of not allowing him to do that. And so because of this, even though the corner has help deep if the ball goes in that direction, he's still very, open to getting beat underneath, really just due to the good route running of John Metchie. As you see, Metchie is going to be able to make the grab, and he's able to pick up a decent chunk play right there. So, that's what he can do. He's definitely someone who has, good route running and can just do the little things that will allow you to get open. And I do think that will work at the NFL level. Let's go over to this one now. So again, this is going to be a one-on-one matchup. This time he is not the outside receiver. He is the number 2 guy. So that's where he is. You see him highlighted on the field. Watch what he's going to do. So right at the bat, he is not showing anything, which is good. The stem portion of the route is what you call this, if you think about a route tree, the stem, right? The beginning portion of the route, you want to kind of not give anything away. If you quickly start moving in one direction, that can fool opposing players. At this point, he kind of starts to fake as though he's going towards the top of the screen, so towards the middle of the field, but then watch what he does. He's going to instead go down towards the bottom of the screen, and it's so explosive. The defensive back, was practically falling over, and then he makes a good contested catch and is able to pick up a big chunk play. So that's how Metchie is going to beat you. He's going to beat you with his shiftiness, with his footwork, and with his route running, and I think he can do it consistently. There's also something like this, where really what stands out for me when watching Metchie, I feel like he's just a high IQ player. That's really what it comes down to. I feel like he's just someone who understands the game of football well, and that's very subjective. That's something that a lot of people say about certain players, and where a lot of people are wrong when they say that about certain players sometimes. But that's what I saw when I watched Metchie play, and this is an example. You see him on the field. The beginning part of this play isn't going to work out too well. Look, as you see, tries to find a soft spot in his zone, but that soft spot wasn't really there. It was well defended by Georgia. That's not a bad play by him necessarily. His route happened to get covered up. That's more of a scheme thing than anything, I would say. But regardless, he is covered up. However, this is where him and his quarterback, Young, are going to read and realize something, where that corner of the end zone is open. And you see Young is pointing towards the corner, but Metchie already has his head turned. Metchie's already turning and getting to that spot. So both of these guys read this at once. So that's cool that they had good chemistry. Maybe Metchie will have, good chemistry with his new quarterback. But also watch him be able to get to that spot quicker than anyone else, and he does get the catch for a touchdown. So again, just good stuff. Good smart football by John Metchie. Good fundamental football by John Metchie. Now let's go over to something like this. This is really where I think that he'll really thrive. And I do kind of feel like with Metchie, his floor seems to be like a Juju Smith-Schuster, in my opinion, because I think he'll still be good at this underneath stuff. It's a man coverage play. You see the one-on-one matchup and watch what happens. So again, very beginning, what is he doing? It's hard to say. I mean, again, he really does not give much away whatsoever, which is why he is able to be so successful on these types of routes. So then once he cuts over the middle, he does get open, makes the catch, and just picks up a decent amount of yards. I have no doubt that he will be a solid possession receiver, if nothing else, at the next level. Again, it is totally fair to have questions about his ceiling because I do feel like there are more explosive guys in this draft class, but I still think he's pretty explosive. I think he'll be pretty good. And again, wide receiver itself, a very difficult position to evaluate just in general. One last play to talk about. This is, again, a good example of kind of what we were talking about earlier. The good possession receiver stuff where again, he cuts very well, and this is a good example of it. Watch him start off as though he's going to the outside, but then all of a sudden he cuts back, gets back to the ball, and is able to pick up a decent amount of yards there. So I have no doubt that he will at least be able to do that part well, and that's kind of cool. It's like you have a definitive thing that he can do well, but we also saw glimpses of other stuff. We saw glimpses of him being able to get open down the field. So if he can consistently do that, that's why I like him and why I think he's a pretty solid receiver. It does seem like the strategy with wide receivers is to just draft a bunch of wide receivers. Well, you know, getting him on your team, he's very interesting to me, and I do not hate him at all as a player. So yeah, listen, you could make the argument, all right, is that their biggest position of need, wide receiver? I would say like they have a lot of positions of need. He's a really good player though, and a philosophy that I abide by is you should never let a day 2 of the draft go by where you don't draft at least one wide receiver or safety. That's kind of a simple rule that I think everyone should follow. So Texans, you passed the rule. You got a wide receiver here because wide receivers are tough to evaluate, and second-round picks with wide receivers tend to have pretty good hit rates. So someone like John Metchie, who I could totally see his skill set working at the NFL level, if nothing else, I think he'll be a solid slot guy who has potential to be more than that. He has potential to be a Devonta Smith. Again, there's injury concerns. Okay, that's not great. But as a whole, I do think he is someone who I like. I think he's a very talented player, and I think that he's someone who is going to help the Houston Texans out. If it is Davis Mills, which it appears to be, going after Davis Mills, going after a guy Davis Mills can, throw the ball to, makes some sense. And with him and Brandon Cooks, you're improving that wide receiver room, which, again, it's not a mess, and it might start to become the strength of this team if the Metchie pick hits, which, listen, the way you win Super Bowls is you have a good wide receiving core. Yes, the Texans are a ways away from a Super Bowl, but how do you get closer? You start getting good players on your roster. This is a good player. I think it'll be a good fit for them. So that's what I think. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.